There we go. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a 2.5 Crows, a podcast with me, Mommy Crow, and Skyrus. Unfortunately, this episode we are down a Mommy Crow, but we have a guest today. Elsword Mod himself, Jeneviv. Say hi, guys.
Hello, glad to be here.
Hello.
But yeah, we got Jeneviv here. If you're wondering what's happening in the background, Guilty of Mine is having a wedding. Yeah, that'll just be in the background. There's no particular reason for it. It just happened to be on the same day as the podcast started, so that's why. But yeah. So say hi to Jeneviv. Any questions you guys like to do? I'd recommend you can highlight the message. We'll be watching chat as always, but if you can highlight your questions, that'd be really nice. Okay. So, Jeneviv, one question that I think is the most curious to me whenever guests come on is, alright, where did the IGN come from?
Alright, so this IGN actually originated from a comic that I used to like. That originally I think was 210-ish.
Okay.
And it was made by a local artist where I lived. I believe the comic is actually still on. It's called Dreamkeepers. This character, this name which I derived this the character which this name is derived from, ended up dying a really unfortunate death. But I thought the name was
goodness.
It's rather pretty. And at the time I was like, I need an IGN. It's an Ara. Ara's kind of pretty. Let's just go with this. Didn't want to put too much thought into it, and stuck with it ever since.
It's a good name. It's a good name. So you play Ara. That was my next question actually. Is which character do you main? Because I don't think I know.
Yep, I main Apsara. Before, actually, I had quit. So I started playing in 2.11.
Okay.
Quit around like 2.14-ish.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually in all three Elsword main and a veteran commander main. I had not touched
Hey,
Ara.
let's go.
Hey.
I also used PvP. A lot has changed since then.
Uh-huh.
And so I ended up quitting, and when I came back to the game, I was like, I'm surprised the game's still around. Maybe I'll just goof around for a bit. So I went on my Ara, I pressed Flying Kite. I'm like, hey, it's pretty fun. And ever since then, I've been an Apsara main.
Understandable. Very understandable. I'm actually not a big fan of playing Ara because I don't like her system, like the orb system. I'm not a big fan of. Pressing Flying Kite is very enjoyable though, I will say.
It is enjoyable when it works.
Yeah.
After many use of abuse with it, you learn that it can be suffering a lot of the time.
Have you ever done the horror ray tech with that?
Yeah, you get stuck in
I
know.
Yeah, I call it Horror Jail, because when you're in there, you can't do anything till it expires.
Yeah, I was thinking that too.
It could be death.
Yeah. Like in what is it? Any attacks that ignore iframes, they're just kind of done. It's just done. You're dead.
You're a done deal. And it's also not... A lot of times, it's actually not very good for damage, because you're forsaking all your other abilities during that time.
Yeah.
You can't refresh your buffs.
It's more for clearing,
But it can be really funny.
Yeah, sure.
For clearing, not necessarily, because once you run out the Horror Radius, the buff expires. So
Oh, true. True.
Additionally, due to how a kite works, if you're killing something, which is hopefully that's the case, otherwise you're pretty undergeared, kite will automatically be refreshing itself anyway. So it's kind of a little redundant in that regard.
Yeah. Yeah, that man. If you don't mind tangenting for a bit, I think the idea around that gold horror ray is cool, but the fact that it doesn't work for some characters bothers me, and then the fact that the characters that it does work for, I don't know if it advantages them that much. If that makes sense.
I think except for Lucille.
I think Lucille minus Dangelion almost abashedly gets advantage off of that.
Yeah, for sure.
I was gonna say, especially if you're innocent, you're just mashing out those combination skills like no one's business.
Yep.
Who else doesn't have an effect? Go ahead.
Doesn't have an effect?
Doesn't have an effect.
I know Raven doesn't. See, okay, the one that bothers me is Raven, because they could just easily make it he doesn't consume core. That's it. It's so simple.
Yeah, you just
simple's not exactly Cog's MO.
Yeah, I suppose. I don't know, just make it not consume core. I think that's good enough, right?
Yeah, I could see that working.
I mean, I don't know what you would do with Elboy or Lesses, but...
that is a bit of a struggle, and that's part of the challenge of game design. I mean, a character that it does affect, but also kind of doesn't, is Chung, who gets unlimited ammo, but he gets unlimited ammo.
Yeah,
anyways,
he gets you just 3-beat. Like he always 3-beats anyway, right?
Well, always 3-beats till you troll them with natal chart.
Okay, see, that's not that's not a choice that they make. Okay. Who else doesn't have an effect? Well, Noah actually. Not like we're all talking about different characters. Noah himself actually does not benefit from Natal Chart's gold.
That's very true.
Which is
at least he gets the damage boost.
Which is weird because like they could. Oh yeah, true, the damage boost. Which is weird because I feel like they could make it so like there's no kind of cooldown on his moon effects, maybe, or at least heavily reduce the cooldown on the moon effect. Because like that's pretty much his character system is the moon.
That's correct. That's what makes him very unique. What is actually the cooldown on those moon effects? Is it like 14 seconds?
Off the top of my head, I don't remember. Do you remember, Sky?
No, I don't remember either.
Yeah, 14 sounds about right. Or is it like 10 or 5?
That would be really interesting, though. You'd mostly have to make use of forced awakening effects, so your own natal chart, apples, onions.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're locked by the awakening. But that could be very interesting gameplay. I mean, I'd like to see that. It also could be potentially really broken.
That's true.
Hard.
I mean, better say the Lucille with the horror ray is already broken, so like this hasn't been done.
Sure. Yeah, she's definitely the pair is really an outlier when it comes to benefiting from it. But I suppose with any effect in the game, it's very hard to have every class benefit to the same degree.
Yeah, that's true. It's just
because even with unlimited cores, it's just a little bit extra damage, right?
I don't know. I just said that to say that like core sucks. Core's the worst. Like low key, I've said this before. If Memorize didn't inherently like get in the way sometimes, the core would be the worst, seen as the worst system.
I can get behind that for sure.
Yeah.
And you just mentioned another character that doesn't benefit, which is poor Aisha. Nothing at all.
I mean, that could be easy too. I feel like you could just give Memorize a damage boost, like the Memorize skill just has a damage boost.
Either damage boost or just does it still reduce damage for Memorize skills?
I think some classes. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Metamorphy Oz they have reduced damage on Memorize, yes, but for Ada Sage, I think she I can't remember the passive name, but I remember that it changed that it gives her enough boost on Memorize skills that it actually like boosted damage. I think. I can't remember.
1 out of 3 classes actually interacts with her system. That's really disappointing.
Yeah.
It really is, yeah.
It's a cool buff though. Like I'm always of the type of like super unique buffs that like are just so like just super wacky, but they're very unique. I'm always down with that. Okay.
Speaking of Memorize, you know what I think would be neat? It's a random thought that I had about the passive. What if they changed it so maybe either Metamorphy or Oz got a buff where I don't know, using Memorize, where putting skills on the Memorize bar gives them like stacking attack percent or like cooldown acceleration. So it's a bit like how Pulse Reload works. Like the more cannonballs you have, the more CDA you have.
Oh, you're saying it's like if you had Memorize skills stocked up, you got like benefits.
Yeah, like imagine Delta passive where if you had Memorize skills stocked up, you gain bonuses. But if you did use said Memorize skills, you gain like other bonuses. You get like a buff or something.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, that's definitely much more interesting than what we got going on right now.
Like what is it? I think ever since I want to say Add, the characters have been getting like really, really good and super unique, almost defining character systems. Like, which is great, like, which is really, really great. But I think some of the older characters feel almost a little bit left in the dust.
Yeah.
Because like
Ravencore.
Yeah. Ravencore, yeah.
It's unfortunate reality.
I
think like it's And I guess like these systems did have been revamped before.
Mhm.
Well, actually, not all. Well, not all of them.
They revamped Hellboys, and it's good now. It's like really good.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah.
Like some of them were for the better, but Raven's Core.
Yeah.
Uh,
That one got nerfed and it's been nerfed ever since because they took away the mid shadow step and core shield.
oh, that one. Ew.
Whoa.
I think it was a PvP.
It was a piece. I mean, it was kind of unfair how like if you caught a Raven, he actually caught you because he could just shadow step.
That's true, yeah.
But you know, FP
But
does that. But I digress.
But then in PvP, it's like, oh, jellyfish is what you sucked in. Good luck.
That would be really nice if a jellyfish caught you, we could just shadow step out if you use core shield. That'd be nice.
Yeah, we can
Do you
do.
think at the very least there's like if they can't figure out anything unique for it, they could buff its damage in PvE?
Maybe,
That'd
yeah,
be a good start.
maybe. Like, I've always said that it'd be really cool if what core did is almost like a smaller version of your skill with you, if that makes sense. Like,
Yeah, it's-
Oh.
yeah, with Ignition Crow, it would fire our smaller Ignition Crow the opposite way. With like Revolver Cannon, it fires its own bullets like that are a little bit weaker. With like Rain of Fire, it would add a couple more fireballs that are a bit weaker. You know what I mean?
Also, adds
I
like
like it.
actual.
Yeah.
It'd be really neat. You build up the core and then like press the V key and your next skills empowered. You know,
Yeah,
that'd
something
be
like
a
that.
lot
Like
more
that too,
interesting.
right? That too, like Eve and Raven. First of all, Eve and Raven share the same system. First of all, Eve's core is better than Raven's because it has better tracking and lingering hitbox, and 3B does crazy splash and gets good MP. And then secondly, but she has a V skill, but we have no V skill. And it's just like, what? Why?
Yeah. I think in one of the Raven discords, people suggested that maybe the V, like if Raven did get a V skill, for example, maybe each of the classes could get a different V key effect. A bit. I guess it's a bit like how Labby's kind. Well, not. It's not really a V key that. Well, I guess it's not really a V key that changes, but it's more like each of Labby's classes has a completely different system.
Yeah.
Like in terms of when they have the storage.
Like-
Radiant Soul has the friendship points, and Nisha has the. I can't remember the name of it.
I don't know.
It's a flower.
Yeah, the forest.
The flower petal, yes. Yes, we moved for it.
Like, but it's like going beyond that, like just speaking of Raven, I honestly want like Nova to go more full on in kind of like the support region, because a lot of times when I hear about like people complaining about Nova, like specifically Raven players, it's always just like, you know, Nova's only really good against big bosses, and he has like no clearing, and it's just like people just kind of wish that like he had more clearing, or he was better against small bosses and like things like that, or something would do with his HP. But I don't mind. I actually like, maybe I'm unique in that sense, but I legit don't mind that he's really only amazing against big bosses, and he's just kind of decent against small bosses and has no clearing, because I kind of like that idea of just like you're really good at one thing and these other things you're lacking kind of thing, rather than having like a fully rounded character that can like just do everything.
Yeah, I think it's those characters that people tend to complain about the most. Like Centurion, he can clear, he can boss. Okay, well against small bosses he's not that great, but it's more like his damage on big bosses is just so out there that it just kind of almost negates the fact that he's bad at small bosses, because he just has so much damage loaded into it.
Right. And they
I
like.
think this was.
Go ahead.
Go on.
No, go
I
ahead.
was gonna say that this desire to be to have a really well-rounded character is just sort of like a product of what modern Elsword kits are nowadays. You have this like new standard. You have Celestia, does it all. You have Liberator, does it all, but very mana hungry. Then you have next to us all the utility universe, and a bit toned down those other two categories. But
Yeah.
it's a bit hard to pull anyone who wants, you know, a well-rounded character, because you see all these like modern characters like Centurion, names are escaping me for some reason, Celestia, who just can do it all, and here you are with these slow, arguably clunky abilities. Like, dang,
Yeah, it's like
grass is looking really green over there.
Yeah. I get that.
I mean, like, I guess it's like, unless you actually like the playstyle of the class, then like I play them. And I guess for some people, like, and I think for some people, like, performance really matters. Like, some people are really put off by the fact that they have to invest so much more time and effort just to be able to like stand up, just to be able to like have a remote chance of competing with another class that is significantly more powerful that they can just. It's like going to Liberator as birth. Like you could go in with +11 and with decent reorders and all that, and you'd still do sizable amounts of damage. Whereas if you tried to do the same with, I don't know, Black Massacre.
Minerva.
Yeah, the roses.
The roses. Like if you just tried to go in there with the roses and like you go in there with your +12, your +12 FOJ, your like, really good reforge, and you just do the same amount of damage, and it's just kind of like, well.
Yeah, I think.
Why am I doing this?
Like in my opinion, like I think in a perfect world, like you would have characters that kind of like did everything, like the what's the phrase? It's like the person that does everything, but they're the master at nothing. I forget what that phrase is called. Jack of all trades. Jack of all trades. Yeah. So you like. I think in a perfect world, it'd be cool if like you had those jack of all trade characters, but I think those jack of all trade characters shouldn't be able to reach the heights of these characters, which have like a staggering flaw, but really excel at something else. Like Nova, for example, who's really only good against big bosses. Like I think it'd be really cool if like, in terms of big bosses, he was like number 1, number 2 kind of thing like that. You know what I mean? And like, and they have that with some characters like Nova, and I think like Nyx is kind of like that too. Like he has like a million billion buffs, but I think his damage is pretty mediocre, right? Yeah, and I
stellar.
Yeah, and I like that. I actually like that a lot. Same with Radiant Soul. Like she has really good supporting skills, but her damage is laughable. Like I think that's the route that they should go. Is just like kind of having this variety of just kind of like you got these characters who can do everything, but they're not the best at everything. They just can do a little bit of everything. You got these characters that are really good supporting, like your Comic Crusaders, like your Nyxes, like your Radiant Souls. You got these characters that are super specialized in one thing. Like let's say Nova is like really super specialized in big bossing. Somebody's super specialized in small bossing and things like that, and like they can reach these heights, these peaks that like the jack of all trades can't. Unfortunately, the game is not like that, but I think they go for it.
Yeah, I guess that was like the biggest complaint with Celestia upon release. It's kind of like, well, he can buff magical classes to ridiculous levels. He can also destroy not destroy, but not like Centurion level.
Oh yeah, but that's Ancient One is no joke.
He has a lot of damage, and he can also, and like his buffs were also like absolutely ridiculous. And I think it was especially people who played, I think it was Bluin. Like I just remember that a really big thing was him being compared to Bluin, who is worse than him in almost literally every way, except for maybe clearing.
Yeah. Like
his boss damage is not as good. He provides almost no. Like compared to Celestia, he has like almost no offensive utility, and like it's just, well, why play Bluin? I mean, when you can play Celestia.
Like it definitely gets to that point where it's just like, why play this character? And even then, like the situation that I brought forth, even that isn't imperfect, because that has the problem of just like, okay, why gear these more support characters? Because like. Right now, if I'm playing like a Radiant Soul, if I'm playing like a Nyx, and it's just like, if I get a +12 on that character, and it's like I'm not doing damage anyway, that does kind of suck.
That's true.
Yeah, it is a struggle because there is a standard among all characters, which every character needs to at least to a reasonable extent be able to clear and be able to boss. Because remember, not all content's are raid content.
Right.
Paying, soloing, etc. And that also makes it difficult to design those niches that you're looking for in a game like Elsword. See, because we only have one big raid at a time, right?
Right.
We had Rosso, then the next step is Birth, and everything's focused on that peak of endgame. So if you're not good for that niche, which is considered, the top tier progression, your ultimate end goal, frankly, your class is considered very mediocre, which is very disappointing. But
it is.
That's just how the game's designed.
Yeah, and I guess it's sometimes speaking of this, I wonder how much people value. I mean, I guess people do value like great farming classes because they want to be able to like clear level content, but it kind of makes me wonder how much people value farmers in high level content, like Trosh, basically. Like how much do people value classes that are extremely proficient at like just Trosh? So for example. Like people don't really consider Animos to be a good bossing.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like
she just kind of one of the middle ones.
Yeah, she's on little ones, but at the same time, like her Trosh clearing is absolutely ridiculous. Like her ability to do Trosh is absolutely ridiculous. And she can also, and like there's so many things in her kit that make her like one of the best EXP farmers in the game. And it's, and sometimes I kind of wonder like because like going off the point at how people consider Birth to be the the really, really top end game, and characters that don't excel in Birth, regardless of how they perform everywhere else, might be seen as a mediocre class. So I kind of wonder how much the general community, especially the Koreans actually, because they farm fuck tons.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder how much that community values great XP farmers.
It'll be a bit difficult to have a general community perception because every individual has their own.
Yeah, like everybody. Like the things that I like some people might just hate, like, and that's true. And so just like, where do we kind of go with the balance or something like that?
It's not a straightforward decision.
It really isn't.
But to go with balance, I mean, regardless of what other content there is, there's perhaps, I don't know if this is just a North American thing, but there is so much emphasis on Birth. And
I mean,
earlier, you're missing certain parts of the kit, like you're missing big laws of ignore defense. I mean, that's what you're going to be clamoring for, is because that's what the big boys are rocking, right? You got RH, you got Didagelian, or however you pronounce that, my apologies.
I was saying Didagelian.
You have Liberator. And so, yeah, you have the classes with great niches that can farm, you have your utility classes, but in the end, I feel like everyone inherently wants to be that all-star. Extent,
like...
Right?
That's also such a difficult thing, because I think it actually is really, really good in an MMO to have a goal like Birth, where it's just like, okay, this is your goal, like everything you work towards is towards this. Like, I do think that is a good thing, but I guess like everything has an upside and a downside, and the downside is just like, okay, you're working towards this goal, but just because you work towards it doesn't mean you're going to excel at it necessarily, just because of the character that you play.
Yeah, it is a plague for any MMO with a class-based system. If you're not at the top, you're considered bad, and that's not unique to Elsword. I've seen this in Maple Story, in World of Warcraft, and Final Fantasy. It's always the same song and dance.
That's so important too. I feel is that whenever people criticize Elsword for like something like character balance and things like that, I think people criticize it as more of an Elsword issue. I feel like this is an MMO issue almost, or an issue with like any game that has like different classes. It's just like, I don't think there can be a true perfect balance.
Well, it's not feasible at all. I mean, especially when you add more and more factors that you have to worry about. You have different raid mechanics, different class mechanics, and like you look at Elsword, I think it's incredible to have a cast of 43 different choices
it's a lot of characters.
And it is incredibly difficult to make all 43 of those classes have their own niche or be able to compete with each other. Inevitably, there has to be a bottom. That's not something that anyone can get away from. And with how complicated and spaghetti the game is, it's not feasible to have 43 perfectly balanced classes unless you make them carbon copies.
Yeah. Which, like the idea of carbon copies I think is lame, but I think copying, or rather sharing certain skills, I think that's something maybe they should do more, if that makes sense.
How they were like trying to spread around super armor.
Like there was an attempt there, right? Like there was an attempt there, but they didn't. I feel like they didn't quite get it, if that makes sense. Because what makes CC OP is not just Wonderwall. It's Wonderwall. It's not just the fact that Wonderwall has super armor. It's the fact that Wonderwall has super armor and damage reduction. He has what is it? Is it Rage Guardian or Rapid Guardian?
Rapid Guardian.
Yeah, he has Rapid Guardian. He has like Iron Howling and Burst Wolf to get rid of debuffs. Like he functions as a support character. It's not just like what they did with Nova, where it's just like, this is a damage character that has super armor on one of his damaging skills. Like that doesn't work. Like Ignition Crow was not made to be a support skill. So when you just slap super armor on it, it's not a good support skill because it wasn't made to be one. The Crow only goes in one direction where Raven stands, making it awkward to position. It's only on the floor, so if you jump, you lose the super armor. Like, it has no additional buffs. It's just super armor, so you are lacking that defensive part that Wonderwall has. Like, You can't just, I don't know, it's just weird. Like, you can't just slap it on it. It has to be intentionally made as a support skill, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and you can, like you said, they had the intention of, we've heard so much feedback of, players really need super armor. It's like, we need this to function. And so they're like, oh, okay, maybe if we give them super armor, they'll get them a rate spot. But like you said, the execution was really lacking.
Yeah.
Brought up a lot of issues with the mission curl. I think Steel Tempest is bar none one of the most egregious, laughable changes that they have done to try and make that utility skill.
Is that the prime operator move?
Yeah, it's a prime operating move. It's like 2 to 3 seconds to cast, as a 5-second duration, and a small as hell radius. What are you gonna do? And it's like a 20-something second cooldown. What the hell are you gonna do with this?
Yeah, and it does it also is just super armor and no like defensive buffs or anything like that?
Yep, just super armor. Gotta be around it, and it refreshes impulses.
Gosh. That sounds even worse.
It is a very, very sad ability.
Yeah, like
Yeah, it really is.
and it's just like, at least with Nova, because I mostly speak about Nova because I play Nova, and so it's just like with Nova, I can easily see them making him a more support. Like, I think it'd be really cool if like he was this character that was again really good at one thing, which is big bossing, but he also had these like little support capabilities, so he can be like very unique. So he's not the jack of all trades. He's the master of big bossing, and he also has support things on the side. I think that set him apart from like a lot of Ravens and a lot of other damaging characters. I think it's very easily done. Like, he could easily have defensive buffs and offensive buffs on that Crow. He could easily, his mana passive, he could share that with the whole cast, so he's kind of a mana healer. I think that'd be cool too. Like, what is it? Something with the damage buff, him giving a damage buff. If he had those 3 things, I think he'd be a very solid support, and it's something he is very capable. Like, they could just easily put that into a kit that already exists, if that makes sense.
I think while I agree with all those points, I think that the issue then comes, what should the competition be? Like,
yeah.
Should it just be bad clearing? Because I think with the bad clearing part, like yes, he is one of the worst clearers in the game, but at the same time, there are classes who are even worse than him.
Oh yeah, that's true. That is very true.
Than him, who have zero support, like less support than he does currently. I was talking about Black Massacre. So.
It's also a bit of a slippery slope when you come for changes like that. It's like, yes.
Oh, for sure.
So
yeah.
there's 2 situations that I want to bring up as a devil's advocate way to bring up concerns. So the first concern is if you make, let's just say hypothetically, you really want to emphasize the support role of Nova Imperator. So you rework some of his abilities, you curve back a little bit of his identity. You could end up alienating your own player base who does play that character currently, because this new vision may not align with what they understand as, or what they've come to love as Nova Imperator.
That's fair, yeah.
That's the first concern that every designer has to contend with, is, are these changes going to alienate my current player bases? Are these good enough to either entice new players or keep our current players around? And the second concern is, if Imperator gets these things, well, what if the 2 Rose players are like, well, can I get some love as well? What if Immortal's like, I want some utility that's outside of Sharp Sword as well?
Yeah.
So you start giving one person something, you kind of have to start giving everyone everything.
Yeah.
Which is again why I think they also gave PS and Super Armor, but the execution just wasn't there.
Yeah, honestly, what you said with like all those points, I completely agree with. I think the one with the Nova gets something with the other things. That's only because I can only speak on Nova. Like, if I knew PO, I could come up with something for PO, but I don't, so I can't. But yeah, I do think just spread the support love a little bit more is like a big thing, just because before Noah, like, there were not that many supports, especially healers and super armors. Well, there's still not that many good super armors, but
yeah.
I think spreading the support love is really, really nice, because before we had Celestia, before we had Nyx, we had Blue Hen Ras as healers, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that was it. And like maybe OZ if you want to counter as like a mana healer, like maybe. So it's just like, I think that support role definitely needs more characters, and I just think that Nova could fit in that role with the kit kind of he already has, without changing him too much, because I do think that's an important thing as well, is like not changing Nova too much. That's why I brought up the mana passive, because to activate that mana passive you gotta overheat, which is like, that's what Nova's supposed to do, so it's like something he does anyway, but now it just benefits the team along with him. I'm trying to think of like an example of that. Oh yeah, they did this before. They did it with what's its name? Innocent. Whenever Innocent activates a combo skill, they get attack speed increase.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now it's party wide.
Yeah. Now it's party wide. I think things like that, you know, like.
I agree.
Yeah. I think it's a good idea. And especially in the idea of Noah, because it's just the fact that they gave Ignition Crow super armor is just like, okay, you're willing to do this. You're willing to.
It just feels.
Go ahead.
I don't know, but I think like Meteor said, like it just feels like they just slapped it on and just went, okay,
Right.
here you go.
It's just,
Like
yeah, it's just like you took one step and then that's it. You didn't get to your destination. You just took one step towards your destination, but you never made it there. Like keep going. Why'd you stop?
Like
I moved. Right? That's Hawk's perspective.
Yeah.
I think I wonder whether they really made such a small change because they're testing the waters. Because
Maybe
or
that.
maybe,
I
like,
mean, that is a good
implement it so
question.
people can like test it out, play it for themselves, and see, hey, is this a good idea or is this not really a good idea? All I remember from the Korean community is that they absolutely just really don't like the change and they would rather revert it.
Really.
Yeah, as in like they want because Ignition Crow used to be 100, I think 12-second cooldown with 150 MP.
Yeah.
Now it's 15 second and now it's 15 second cooldown with 200 MP, and they just want it. Yeah, they just want this change to be reverted basically because they're like, oh, the super armor is useless, and we want to be but we still want to be able to use the skill more often to activate to activate passive. Yeah, so then they're like,
okay,
just revert it. Like
I can get that.
Basically they're angry. So.
Yeah, I can sympathize that words are hard. I can sympathize with that to a degree. I do think that if KOG released it with kind of like defensive buffs or offensive buffs, or maybe both, on Ignition Crow, there'd definitely be less complaining. At least in my opinion.
I feel like if what they did was that you stepped into the flame, you then get a buff, like you're on fire, but it protects you or something. I don't care how they do it.
Yeah.
And then you can leave the area, it protects you, you get that super armor. Then I think it would be a lot better received instead of whatever we have right now.
Yeah, like if it was just like if you touch it, you have it for the entire duration, even if you step out. Like
that'd be neat.
I think, and I think the issue is something Jeneviv mentioned early on, is that like we have what 40+ characters. Like there is no way everybody at the KOG offices like are masters at every single one of these characters. It's just not possible. I don't think it's possible. And I think
not with their stuff.
Yeah, I don't think it's possible. And I think they need to really. Thankfully, they're doing this now, but they really need to rely on their players for that, because there's no way they're masters at all these characters, but their player base are. Like, I'm almost 100% positive there is a master of every single class in, like, for sure.
In the Korean server.
Yeah, in the Korean server, in the NA server, like, I'm sure there's a master for every single character and can tell you, like, how to properly refine these characters without, like, making them busted, like, just refining them.
I think at the same time, though, that going back to the previous point about how I guess we have so many different classes and somehow each of them needs to have their own identity.
Yeah.
And I guess it's the subjective thing about how everyone wants their classes to be. Like, say, for example, like me, or you say that you want Nova to be more of a support, to like lean more towards the support, but which is very different for me. Like for me, I want him to be even more of a glass cannon. I wished he was squishier, and I wished he dealt even more damage than he currently does.
Yeah.
But if you ask another Nova, then they say, oh well, like if you play like a glass cannon, then like, well, you're good luck surviving in burst. So I'd rather Nova to be more, I guess, more of a bruiser type and like be able to survive.
Yeah.
And then do you kind of see what he's the problem? And then now that like becomes a problem when if they ask one specific person for their opinion. Although I guess at the same time, there's also we also have to think about whether they will actually like implement the changes or whether they will just take their words into consideration. Because at the same time, I think COG also has their own vision for what they want the classes to be.
Right, that's true.
Yeah. And then so I guess because they're in the development side, like we don't know exactly what they want, but at the same time, like they have to strike a balance between satisfying the players, but also maintaining the image of the class that they they intended. Like they shouldn't be like 100% pushed around by the player population. So, yeah.
It's a balance that all games inevitably have to face. Is the desires of your players, the dreams of your players, the desires of your developers, what is actually possible, etc.
Yeah.
But in terms of taking player feedback into consideration, I believe they've actually, this year and a little bit last year, I think they've actually moved towards a good direction in terms of finally being a little bit more open to feedback. Because previously... Sorry, go on.
No, go ahead.
Previously, we had and this has been the case for elsewhere. We had a lot of just very strange, disconnected changes, and without any explanation. So the community, I believe, for the most part, believed the theory that, well, they may not be listening to the players, but maybe they're just watching, these characters get highlighted on YouTube and be like, "Damn, look at Furious Blade beating Guy in a minute, nerf." And over time, those nerfs have been slowly reverted. Like Furious Blade got some of his damage back. Classes are starting to get more utility classes. Like some of the more neglected classes, at least getting some sort of a buff. And recently, they've opened I believe was like a forum, but a way to submit feedback.
Yeah.
So maybe they are opening themselves a bit more.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of will they do something with it that's productive.
As I say, it's it's so funny that you say that. So in the most recent, so I try my best to follow KR stuff, at least from the devs. So in the most recent, excuse me, kind of update that they did, where they updated professions again, they put at the bottom of that, okay, the next balance patch will be in the middle of May. I forget the date at the moment. I think it's the 25th. It'll be okay, this is the next balance patch that's gonna happen. Go to the forums. They even gave a link to the balance forums. They were just go to the forums and tell us kind of what you want, or what are you expecting to see on all your characters and things like that. So I think, because that's something that they mentioned when they responded to that controversy, was that one of the big things was communication. They wanted to make communications a lot stronger, because the players felt that KOG wasn't responding to them. So I think this is a good thing that they're doing. I mean, we'll see it for sure. And I think this May balance patch might be one of the craziest if they go by their word of just okay, we want to listen to you guys. So we'll see. I think that May balance patch is going to reveal a lot, kind of in that sense, which is kind of what we're talking about, in the sense of just that they truly understand all these characters, or all these characters getting benefits, because we talked about Nova a lot just because me and Sky here are both NI mains.
Yeah,
but in my honest opinion, I honestly think Nova's fine. Honestly, even though he,
I think it's more.
Go ahead.
I think I agree, but for me, I think it's less of that. I believe that he's actually fine, and more of a please prioritize other classes before changing.
Yeah, right.
Over.
I think about Nova, and I think about Nova, and then I think about somebody else, like a Rose. You know what I mean? Like a Black Massacre, like a TB. I'm just man, when have I ever seen a TB? When have I ever seen a Black Massacre? And it's just I can only imagine the things that they want, the passives or the skills that just don't quite make sense, or things like that. And it's just
Tempest,
go ahead.
Tempest Burster is probably in the best position, I'd say.
Yeah.
Black Massacre has the worst clearing in the entire game.
Okay.
And her bossing is also not, how do I say it? It's workable. But
it's gotten
not
considerably better compared to how it used to be with their buffs.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely the two, Heider PO and Minerva. PO is regarded as the worst class in the game by a lot of players.
Yeah.
I think, I guess briefly touch on Minerva. I heard from Minerva players that her kit doesn't feel very coherent. And it's also that she does absolutely amazing damage against big bosses, because Viper Shower is just that broken. But if you put her against some supports, she just kind of tickles them.
Okay.
And then there's also and then Prime Operator. Okay, here's the problem. Prime Operator drops FPS absolutely nobody's business.
Yeah, and unlike Celestia, it's not worth it.
Yeah. And there's also, and I think because of that, actually, I feel like Celestia drops my frames less than Prime Operator.
Really? Okay.
But I guess it really depends on the computer. But I guess the really big thing is that how can you get feedback about a class that people can't even play?
Yeah, that's true.
It's just I think for Prime Operator specifically, if they want to change her, the first thing they should do is just to fix her FPS issues, just to at least make her playable. Because it doesn't matter how broken you make her if nobody can even play her because she has these frame issues.
Honestly, that is such a big thing, and I think Jeneviv did mention it a little bit. I think I heard you say spaghetti code at one point. Like,
Yeah.
like listen. If and I mean listen to like KOG. If you guys can't upgrade your code for whatever reason, may it be the higher ups in the company or like Nexon KR, if you can't upgrade to like a 64-bit thing or like you can't upgrade the software at all, you gotta work with what you got and understand your limitations. Like, you can't have a game like this with like super fancy little effects like Celestia has, like Blue Hen has. They look nice, but like when they drop FPS and you can't play the game, I don't think it's worth it. I really don't.
And then people end up turning off the effects that you work so hard to make anyway, so then they don't lag.
See, way back in the day, when special actives were this once in a blue moon thing, maybe not once in a blue moon thing, but it was actually kind of a spectacle, right? You finally built up this mana, you use this super move, and you can view it. It's great. But the game has moved to a skill spam meta for better or for worse, and most of the time, those effects are getting disabled. I don't have the computer to handle party effects. I know some people do. Some people can play with all those effects going on. I can't see anything with 7 meatballs on my screen with Celestia in my party. So I'm disabling that.
Exactly.
It is tragic, but that's just how it is. I value being able to play the game than being able to see it if I'm playing the game.
Honestly, and
I'm watching a stream share.
And it's like a lot of these things where it's just like, oh man, I'm trying to like think of a good example. Like a Ain class, for example. Ain has a lot of 3D models for his attacks for some reason, and it's just like, okay guys, why are these 3D models? Like, these could easily be like a 2D model, like a tactical field or like something else. Like, they don't need to be all these like fancy stuff, and like they can still look nice while like being more simple. It's like definitely not worth it. At least I think so.
Just to hop back a little bit on the communication thing, while I am very happy and looking forward to how they treat getting feedback from the Korean side of things, as a North American player who has, as a moderator who has to oversee the suggestions channel, I've seen a lot of discussion for the time I've been back to Elsword. I feel like our community actually has some good perspectives that we can offer.
Like, I think that's the next step.
That we don't have a way to communicate. Like, I know, and I will say that our suggestion channels, at least some suggestions are forwarded. We don't know to what extent or how they're forwarded, or if they're even taken into consideration. But that's the surface knowledge that we have, is that our system exists.
Yeah.
Yes.
But
like, even I think about it, and like, it's funny. Like, sometimes it's so like okay, I don't mean to say this in like an arrogant way, but like as somebody who makes YouTube videos about Elsword and things like that, I think I have like a little bit almost better approach, and sometimes it feels like I notice it. I don't know if it's coincidence or it's just kind of like, oh, maybe they are watching my videos, but sometimes they'll like specifically mention things that I haven't heard anybody else say, like Support Nova, for example. I haven't heard anybody at all ever mention Support Nova aside from me. And then like when they talked about like why they did certain things, they specifically mentioned Super Armor Crow as like one of the things. So I don't know if they're actually listening to my videos, but it's just like, let's say for example, like that's like one of the NA perspectives that they get is like my videos, and it's just like, I think that's kind of unfair to people, because like it's just because I just happen to be making videos, and it's like I don't have the voice of everybody under my shoulders. But it would be really nice if we had this communication route with them, because I feel like our server is just as important as KR's server, like, and our players are just as important as they are too.
Yeah, it is very perplexing. I mean, it's understandable to a degree why KR gets some favoritism, right? They're the home server, they're probably most likely their cash cow. But at the same time, we've been a loyal player base for 10 years. We've put up with so much crap over 10 years, right? Things have gotten better, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah.
They're willing to open up. So I feel like maybe in a few years' time, I don't think we'll ever get a direct line, but maybe we'll just get a little bit more. I don't know how to phrase this, respect than we have been given a little bit.
You know, like,
No.
it's such a... I think one key thing with this to consider is, like, Elsword is such an old game, and the idea of having separate games, if that makes sense for each server, is such an old thing. Like, one of the things I think about is, like, Genshin Impact, where Genshin Impact has different servers for, like, you got the Asia server, you got the North America server, etc., etc., but it's all still one game, you know what I mean?
Right.
It's all still one game. Like, you could, as someone from North America, I could access the Asia server if I decide to by just clicking a button. Like, if I want to access KR server, it is a completely separate game in itself. Like, that is such a old thing that unfortunately has created this kind of issue of, like, this dissonance between them. Like, and we're just talking about KR to NA. Like, KR to EU, that's a whole different beast. That's a whole nother beast.
Oh god.
Yeah, and that could be again a product of having different publishers. And there's internal
that's
matters
true
we don't have
too.
any knowledge about.
I
Yeah.
think there's also that because the game was released so long ago, and maybe this was the norm. Then I guess and I guess like for Genshin in particular, they had the benefit of being able to release all the servers at the same time. So because of
Right.
that, they can keep everything at the same time. Whereas for Elsword, KR released in 2007, and then NA got it in 2011, and then so because of that difference in release date, there has been that yes we caught up in content, but it still doesn't change the fact that because of that like massive difference in release date, there was that, I guess, that separation.
Yeah.
Hmm.
That's I mean,
that's
yeah,
fair,
that's probably why. Yeah.
But even with that delay in content in terms of update times, fundamentally we're still playing the same game.
Oh yeah.
And I feel perhaps our perspective is taken into consideration a bit more than I'm giving it credit for. But for me, for this, I don't know about you guys, with this recent survey they had in KR, I feel actually a little bit helpless because I'm hopeful that whoever is providing feedback for my class or for a friend's class or anything is saying stuff that I can agree with.
Yeah.
Or at least that's somewhat reasonable. Like if they turn Apsara into some, I don't know, like remove Kite or something ridiculous, I'd be like, I didn't sign up for this. Who'd you listen to? Can I have a word with them real quick?
Right.
So it's just a concern of mine. But again, like you stated, we'll just have to see how things play out. Hope for the best.
That is so real too. Where it's just, I mean, we talked about that a little bit earlier. It's just like my vision of a character is different from Sky's vision of a character, and that might be different from someone in KR's vision of a character. But the difference is the person in KR actually has a voice, to tell them, like a direct line. So the best I can do is just kind of, like you said, like hope that like they do something that I want, and I'm thankfully in the position where I could make a video talking about, and I probably will, talking about okay, what I want to see from Nova from this balance patch, and maybe that has a chance to be seen by the Korean devs or Korean players, just because it's out there on the internet. But even then, that's such a backwards way of kind of getting our voice out there, Yeah. But I really hope that is the next step that they take. If they successfully, I mean, it's still, I feel like it's still the testing phase for them of okay, you guys gonna do what you said you did kind of thing. It's just okay, here's all the things we promised, but you promised a lot. Let's see if you can actually pay that up. And in some aspects they have, saying when we'll get a balance patch. That's really nice, and that's keeping up a promise. What is it? Going into more detail about the updates that they give and the intention for the updates. Okay, that's something that they promise that they're doing well. And I think this May balance patch will be kind of the next kind of big reveal of just all right, are you actually listening to what people are saying, or are you just saying that you'll listen but you won't actually, kind of thing,
It's really scary because I want to say that COG was on a roll up until the profession revamp. Everything was looking on the up and up, and in one fell swoop, they made one controversial change. It all went to crap. Got people up in arms, etc.
Yeah, that is so strange too. I never thought about that, but you're so right. I think every update up until then, people were just heck yeah, this is so good. But I don't know.
Profession came and then people...
enhancements are so volatile in this game. It's so volatile that if you don't just directly improve it, because I think one thing with the enhancement changes that they originally did, and they said why they did it, is that they wanted to change it to be more consistent-ish, but they didn't buff it enough that people unabashedly enjoyed it. Like, yeah, if that makes sense.
They did a bit of a trade-off.
Trade-off, that's the best way to say it, yeah.
So what they want to do is make it, like you said, more consistent. You can enhance outside of enhancement event. Here's a few problems. The current system punishes the players that would have waited for the enhancement event anyways. Because logically, from a resource standpoint, you'd wait for the enhancement event anyways because you'd save on resources. So you're punished for doing that. You no longer get, at the time, you no longer had skips. So it's like, great. This is the whole allure of blacksmith thing.
Exactly.
What have you done to me? Because with the skips, you didn't have to rely on cash shop goods. You just get lucky. Maybe you break at 8, unfortunate, but otherwise you just kept gambling at +7, hoping for a +3 skip or +2 skip. So that's no longer an option. So now players are forced to rely on cash shop items again, because that's even with the revamp trying to make it so that you don't have to rely on enhancement events, you still have to use the cash shop. It's inevitable. Right. Your items are still going to break. Your items are still got to prevent downgrades. So they gave us some concessions back, but I mean, the damage is done. I have no idea why they wanted to remove the skips. Like, if they just kept the skips in there, or just did anything else, I don't think this would have been nearly as bad, but it's like, they took 3 steps back and then took a backflip backwards. It's just weird.
I think another thing too is that usually during enhancement events, they have cash shop sales.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, why? Like, so even with this change, it's kind of like, why would you enhance outside of enhancement event, where you can wait for the enhancement event, wait for all the fluorites and stuff to go on sale, and then just buy them in bulk.
Yeah.
Enhance during the event anyway. So it's a bit of a question mark.
I think one thing somebody mentioned in my chat like a while back when I was talking about it before is the idea that just like the current kind of blacksmith that we have now, the skipping, I'll call it the skipping blacksmith. I think the skipping, but they mentioned that like maybe the skipping blacksmith was never what KOG even intended it for it to be, for us to just wait for like an events and then just kind of do it then, or like just try to like you were saying, like just skip at +7 and that's kind of like the tech. Like it was just like maybe we've been abusing the system the whole time and they've never essentially wanted that. That could be it. I'm not sure. You know, like just because I don't know intention of the creation of skipping blacksmith. It was so long ago.
Well, we'll never know because they're not transparent, and understandably so to an extent. But they still created this system that's lasted for how many years? 5 years, I want to say.
Something like that. That sounds
a very long time.
Like
yeah.
And like you said, enhancement's a huge point of contention. It is mandatory for progression. It is unreliable. It is frustrating, and especially with the rates being revealed now, we already knew we were getting scammed, right? Now we guaranteed know how scammed we're getting because we know what we're paying into.
Yeah.
It's like, why? Why would you do this?
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm a little bit more. I said something that makes sense. I'm a little bit more sympathetic for enhancement because we live in an environment where like it's almost a bad idea to enhance if you are a player who just like doesn't enhance that often. Like if I was a new player, I would, and I had like the knowledge that I do now, like it's so dumb to enhance. You just grind and buy the amulet. I think that's just so much better unless you have like super expendable income. So it's that, I think that's an extra layer of just kind of weirdness. And I'm also sympathetic to the idea that they were trying to do, right? Where it's just like, okay, you can enhance better outside of enhancement event, because it is very strange to tell a new player, no, don't enhance your weapon. Wait till an event that happens twice a year. You know what I mean? Like, that's strange. That's definitely strange. So I sympathize with the idea of like wanting to create something where it's just like you can enhance outside of enhancement event just to kind of catch up, and then the enhancement event itself is just kind of like crazy, super crazy time. But you know, execution is where it fell apart. For sure.
Agreed.
Yeah, because looking at the system, like skipping compared to like the modern one, like the modern one is really nice in its own way because it helps you past +10, because skipping only helps you up to +10, I believe. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
See, skipping
Yeah,
only
okay.
helps you up to +10. The new system helps you pass +10, which is, I think, a benefit. I think that's an upside, that it helps you pass +10, you know, trying to get to 11, because you get those free hammers. But like you said, it's just like, you know, the key is that +9 and +10 to a certain degree were available for free. That's the key here, is that they were available for free. Of course, they took grinding, but I don't think that's such an important thing because, you know, paying money compared to grinding. I think people are more down with grinding. So it's just like locking plus. I think they even locked +8 behind a fluorite, like in the early version of Profession. I can't remember, but definitely +9 was locked behind a fluorite, and people were just like, "What is this?" And I can completely understand why people freaked out about that.
The enhancer system in itself is just it's quite a paradox, because one, it's probably one of their primary sources of income, so I can understand why they're hesitant on giving any concessions to us.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, though, and this is a separate problem, which is how the game treats and teaches new players, which is essentially not at all.
Yeah, no, the community teaches players, not the game.
Yeah, but so many players, you know, because I watched the server so much, so many new players, you know, they screw up. It's like, you know, I got this +9 weapon, downgrade, reset, it's broken. Like, the game tells you that in red text, but you don't really know the consequences unless you actually, like, read into it.
Yeah.
And not only that, you need enhancement to play this game.
Yeah, you do.
Yes, you can make it easier with, you know, taking the guaranteed option. Of
at least before these recent quality of life, because the free +9s kind of, you don't need to do enhancement for a long time with those. But yeah.
I agree. Those were fantastic changes. Again, that's what made the community so happy before the profession changes. But at the same time, isn't it a bit absurd that +9's a standard to play the game?
Yeah, I definitely think it's weird that +9 is the standard in this kind of state that it's in, if we're not talking about the player market. Because I think the player market makes it fine because +9s are so cheap. But if we're taking that out of the equation, I think just gameplay systems, it just doesn't make sense and doesn't quite work.
Which is why Void comes +9 by default, and so everyone has that default standard. Everyone can enjoy the game to at least a certain extent. So there's less complaints in that regard.
Like honestly, I think the main problem, like I said, is that they just kind of shifted it. Like, they kind of shifted it in a way where it's good in some spaces, bad in some other, but the bad stuff kind of almost outweighed what we were losing, in a way. So that just kind of made it bad, and it's just like, compared to all the other changes, which are just better, this was just like a shift. I think they should have just made it better. Like, they could have done it, like, they could have, something that have been in the minds of people ever since Reforged came out, is the idea of a fail track system. And I think, I think Elsword can work with the fail track system completely fine. Because, like, I think one thing that I've heard from people who wail a lot is, like, the idea of just, like, you're just kind of throwing your money at a chance of something. There's no, like, guarantee. You know, like, this isn't, like, a gacha game, for example, where it's just, like, when you hit 90 pulls in Genshin, you will get a Mercy. You know what I mean? Like, you can throw your money for a chance at RNG, but there's always that safety net that kind of saves you at the end of the day. With Elsword enhancing, there is no safety net. You're just kind of throwing money out there or throwing resources out there until you get lucky. Like, I think, honestly, and I think Reforged is a great test of that. That it's just like, Reforged, it's really annoying. It really is really, really annoying. But seeing that meter goes up, it's just like, man, I hope it skips. And it's like, dang, it didn't skip. You don't feel bad, you know what I mean? Like, you feel bad, but it's just like, at least I got it, you know? That's always there.
Yeah, you'll know, after this amount of amethyst, I will get the next step.
Yeah, so that...
You have that safety net.
Right, you have that safety net. You have that encouragement. Even if it's just like, man, I went all the way from Reforged 9 to Reforged 15. I didn't even get one skip. This really sucks. But it's just like...
You got there.
Yeah, it's just like, it sucks. But you don't feel like you don't have anything. With Enhancement Event, it's just like, man, I paid $200. I didn't even get 1 + 9. This absolutely sucks. You're like, you don't have anything. You don't have anything, like, at the end of the day with how much you spent. with Reforged, you have something. It's just like you just lost a great opportunity to get something great. But with enhancement, you just get something or get nothing.
You just suffer, yeah.
Yeah, you just suffer.
Unlike Gacha, where at least you get some pity garbage, like even if it's just like redundant characters, redundant items. I mean, at least you're getting something. All you're getting with enhancement, if you don't get what you want, is disappointment.
Yeah,
And pain. And an empty wallet.
I know, right? Like honestly, I honestly think that a fail track system would be absolutely fantastic for Elsword. Like, even honestly up to plus 12. Like, maybe it sounds like even myself, I didn't believe that plus 12 should have a fail track. I was always just like, oh, maybe make fail track up to plus 10 or plus 11. But honestly, having a fail track up to plus 12, it's just like the grind is so long. It's just like, but you know that just the fact that promise is there to eventually get it. Like, I think that is such a great idea that, in my opinion, they should implement. And it would say, I think it would have saved, like, theoretically, if they implemented a fail track system when they did New Blacksmith, I think people would have been fine with it because it enforces that idea of consistency.
I think knowing COG, if they did implement some kind of pity with enhancements, they probably won't put the pity to plus 12. But I think it would be a good idea to have it up to plus 11, considering how important it is to end game at the moment. I mean, I don't think I mind if they put the plus 11 pity at like a ridiculous amount.
Right, like that's the thing too. Like you could make it ridiculous.
Yeah, but it's still. But the important part is it's still there. Like you're not spent. Like you're like say you throw I don't know, $500 to go from plus 10 to plus 11. Like you got it in the end. I mean your wallet's empty now, but you got it. You got it in the end.
Yeah.
Whereas I think, well, at least personally, I think they wouldn't do it for plus 12 simply because A, they need money, and B plus 12 also has that.
There's no safety in plus 12.
Yeah, I feel like they try to milk. I feel like they want to milk people as much as possible with plus 12 because not only like, because there's also like the downgrade as well. So it's like, and I guess like if you did implement a P, then people might be more, how to say?
Yeah, I
don't want to say motivated to go for plus 12, but knowing that they will eventually get their thing back up to plus 11.
Like low key, I honestly low key think that they might even make more money with a fail track system because they could set the bar whatever number that they want it to, and I think people would be more willing to like hand over their wallet, so to speak, if it's just like, okay, eventually I can get this kind of thing, you know?
Oh yeah, I'll just hit the pity. Like it'd be nice if I got it before, but the pity exists.
Because like I'm sure.
We'll definitely have to see how it's executed. Because my worry is that they implement the failsafe and then they reduce the base rates. Because hey, you got your pity now. It's a monkey's paw situation.
That's the monkey's paw for sure. I think generally though, like, I would be fine with that. At least me, like, because when it came to Area Node versus Rigamore, give me Reforge over L tiers any day of the week. I hate L tiers, like gambling L tiers. You might get it. You probably won't though. Like, oh my goodness, I hated L tiers so much compared to Reforge, where it's just like you get it eventually. It might take a long time. It might take even longer than L tiers took you, but you'll get it eventually. With L tiers, just like, yeah, good luck.
Eternal suffering.
Yeah. So I'd completely be fine with them reducing the rates if they created a fail track.
Let's see how it's done, but there's so many ways to handle enhancing, right? You can have a failsafe system, you can reduce the costs, you could have alternative ways to get the end goal. But definitely something, I really do sincerely hope they have some plans in mind, especially after all this feedback.
They did mention in their response to the controversy that they are working towards something for enhancement. They didn't want to do it at the moment because enhancement is so volatile, even though they changed it anyway, but whatever. So they did mention they want to do something with enhancements. What that will be, I don't know. My theory is that it's a fail track because Reforge exists. We've seen that before, like for example, title switch system. They tried that out with the emote system.
Stickers.
Yeah, the sticker emote system. So that was like a beta test for title switch, and title switch, in my opinion, is one of my favorite updates ever in this game.
Title switch.
Title switch is very
yes.
nutty. I love title switch so much.
It is fantastic to not have a big block of white blocking half your screen trying to switch titles.
Yeah. Eventually, it's. I remember. I still remember practicing like my title switching and having to go. Okay, like I have to play this game like half blind, while I take these few seconds to switch my title. I just got to pray that Robert doesn't do whatever the hell he's gonna do while I title switch.
Yeah, I mean, it was almost like I've mentioned this before, but like honestly, title switching is more of an exploitation than an intentional thing. But players used it enough that now it's a legitimate thing. They made it a real thing. It's really cool.
And that's another proof that I believe they're being more receptive to player feedback. Is they very well could have just removed title switching entirely. Could have gone back way to the old days. You could not swap titles. I'm really glad they made this accommodation because it's a core part of the game for better or for worse.
And I think it's such a highly skilled thing too. Like I think it makes the game more dynamic.
There's an additional layer of complexity
that
I think is great to have more ways of skill expression. It's also not that inhibiting if you're. For some reason, for like general content, if you're unable to title switch, no big deal. But if you want to push damage, you have that way of squeezing a bit more out of your character.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of the times when I tried to Henna speedrun. Title switching is imperative. I think even especially back when Jabaki title did it still left the buffs when you switch out of it. Yeah, title switching is just so important in Henna titles. Henna speedrunning, so I mean it's not really not that many people care about Henna speedrunning anymore because the rewards are so low compared to like the amount of effort you have to take into.
There's nowhere to use that title that Henna gives you.
You can use it for sure. Versus Jabaki.
Yeah, like it really is just for bragging rights, flexing.
Yeah. Honestly, the fact that it's only for bragging rights, I think they should just go the raid route and give you like a sit or like something like that.
Oh, shiny.
Because like, there's no point in being on the raid board, but you get a little fancy sit. It's something.
That's true. Yeah.
It's better than a useless title. Yeah.
So now we segued on a lot of things that we'd like to see changed, but is there any other topics you guys can think of as something that's a glaring issue in Elsewhere that you would like addressed?
I mentioned this a little bit, but my main issue with Elsewhere is the kind of spaghetti code. It's 32-bit, like kind of problem. But again, I'm sympathetic towards that because I don't know the reason why that's a thing. Like I don't know if it's the higher ups making it not a thing. I don't know if it's like Nexon KR saying you can't do that. So, yeah.
Clearly, there has to be a reason, or else it would have been done already. And to put in perspective, I need someone to fact check on this, but I believe MapleStory, 18 to 20 year old game, they're just now getting a beta for their 60-bit client.
Oh, okay. I don't know if that's true or not, but yeah, interesting.
That's what I heard from another member of the community.
I think it's important to note that MapleStory has probably garnered way more cash than Elsword has in its lifetime.
Oh yeah, what is it? Nexon KR loves MapleStory. they're definitely in love with MapleStory. So much so that MapleStory 2 is bad. Got rid of it.
I just want this is a tangent, not Els related, really quick, but I know people rag on Elsword for its price models, but man, have you seen how absurd MapleStory's cash top is? It's like I don't know how anyone can survive that.
Oh yeah, I don't know. Like, miss me with that.
Imagine, what was it, like 10 ice burners in one single ice burner, and you have to get lucky to pull the piece you want.
That's pretty.
All your anything from the cash up expires, even costumes, unless there's a special event.
Gee,
yeah,
that's great.
Yeah, like the teleport rock. Haha, good luck living without teleport rock.
I meant like fashion. Imagine all that fashion that everyone's clamoring for, and it just vanishes after 90 days. Cool. I get to look pretty for 90 whole days. Spend $18 for that. Sick.
That's horrible.
That's so tragic.
I feel like it's almost like MapleStory can kind of do that though, because it's just like MapleStory is such like that OG kind of like it was the one, man. That was the MMO. It was like the father of all of them almost, or at least a lot of MMOs.
Definitely paved the way for a lot of games that followed its
style.
I don't know if its model, its like design.
No.
I
this
think
is another tangent.
Oh, sorry, go
In
on.
terms of like MapleStory making more money than Elsword, do you think it's because like COG didn't really give us enough ways to actually spend our money to an extent? Like they remove costumes that everyone wants from the cash shop, and they never come back except for Black Friday. You can see all those whales are like, "I'd be willing to sell my leg for bunny ears," right? You have people begging COG to take their money, but this is not happening. Yeah.
That's true.
Maybe. That'd be like, yeah. I would say I can't really say for sure, for not sure, and like that's definitely something that you would need data for. It could be. Like
It's just a wonder to me if like they're just in some sort of old mindset is why things are the current, or why things are the way they are right now.
Yeah, like somebody mentioned once to me like the gameplay side of Elsword shouldn't be like kind of paid stuff at all, and like all the paid stuff should be from the cosmetic department. And I honestly wouldn't mind that. I think that's more like modern kind of thinking. Like that's definitely more the modern style of just like all your gameplay stuff is free, but your cosmetic stuff, that's where we get you. That's where the money is. I'm honestly fine with that model personally.
I'm fine with that as well. The problem is, how do you transition our
Yeah,
current
like
Elsword
that's
to
like
that
that
without
like,
rebooting the whole game?
right, like that's the thing. Like these games, like when let me I'm trying to think of some games that are like free.
League of Legends.
Like right? Like okay, you got your League, you got your Valorant, you got your Fortnite. Gameplay aspects, those are all free. Like maybe League, like I think you had to like only certain heroes are available for free, etc. etc. But
Well, you can find them, yeah.
yeah, but you still play the game. You can still play the game. You can play with like almost anybody you want. You can technically be the best player in League of Legends without spending a nickel. Like, that's true, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's definitely a modern thing, and it's just like it'd be cool to see Elsword get to that point where like the gameplay stuff is just behind. Let's say, if anything, it's just behind grinding, like in the game, like. Or things like that, and the paying stuff is only for cosmetics. I think that would be cool, but it's just like, yeah, how do we get to that point where we can implement that?
Actually, speaking of that, I wonder whether it's a difference in the kinds of mindsets and like the kinds of cultures that these games are coming from. Because all the games that we've listed, like Fortnite, League of Legends, Valorant, they all have Western developers.
True.
Whereas if you look at games like MapleStory, Elsword, they're all from the east. They're all from the eastern side of things, and I guess like attitudes towards spending in the eastern side of things is extremely different to I guess the western side. So I think I remember one thing that stood out to me was so this was years ago when Fate Grand Order was like, this was a couple years back, but this is in the Korean server of Fate Grand Order. The Korean players were. So I guess like to give some context, in the game you can gacha for 4-star characters and 5-star characters, and yeah, 5-star characters are like make your gameplay experience better and whatnot. But you can also get by very well with 3-star characters and whatever like free 4-star characters that the events give out. And the Korean community actually wanted either the 5-star characters to be buffed or the 3-star characters to be nerfed, because they believed that rolling gacha to get 5 stars was not worth their money, because they didn't think that the power difference between the 3-star characters and the 5-star characters were enough, were like worth their money. So at least like I guess like this is just one game, but at least to me that kind of made me realize like, hey, like people in the Eastern community, they go out, they work, and they come back, and they're extremely happy to spend their salary on their favorite characters in the game. But at the same time, they also place an extreme amount of emphasis on like how worth my money is. It's like they want to spend money, but it's like, how worth it is my money? Whereas I think in a Western fan base, it's more like they want to be able to experience the gameplay without. Yeah, and like technically like be able to achieve the heights that they want without having to be gated by their wallet, essentially. So, but of course they're very happy to spend on cosmetics because because everyone wants shiny things.
Yeah, they want cool shiny stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was something that.
Yeah, that is a really good point. Yeah, I'm just not completely sure in that aspect. 'Cause I don't play many other Korean MMOs, so I don't know like how like that style is. Like I've tried some, like I've tried Blade and Soul, didn't like it, but I tried it for a little bit. Yeah, that game is very pretty, but the gameplay is very lacking, at least in my opinion. So I just don't know how they like more or less kind of function in relation to Elsword. So yeah, that could be true. It just could be the mentality of like that kind of like area of like developers. Like, that's just how they want to do it.
Actually, speaking of that conversation, it actually, like, I guess like that kind of mindset is, I think, something that I share to an extent as well. Like when I spend my money, I want to be able to have, like, I want my gameplay to be enhanced because I am choosing to support the game and put my hard-earned money into it. And I guess a recent example is, I guess, a new game that I started, Punishing Grey Raven versus the game that I'd started before, which is Ensemble Stars. So Ensemble Stars, you can roll for more cards. Like, it's a card collecting game. You can roll for more cards. But the thing is, the cards do nothing other than to improve your score or to make material farming better. But the point is that getting better scores in the game like has like almost no impact in the game at all. Like maybe you roll out of the love for your characters only. There is extremely little gameplay benefit there is to like actually putting a wallet in. Whereas if I gutted on Punishing Grey Raven, I can buy upgrades for my characters, I can buy weapons, I can buy more characters, and it just kind of. And I remember first like spending money on Punishing Grey Raven, and I felt, wow, like I felt my wallet was going into something meaningful. Whereas when I was wailing on Ensemble Stars, it's kind of like yes, I understand that people can love their characters so much that they're willing to max out all their cards, they're willing to like go all the way. But at the same time, like I just felt there was like that like tiny bit of emptiness that I felt when putting my wallet into Ensemble Stars, because yes, I love the characters, but this isn't really enhancing my gameplay experience. So. Oh yeah, okay, I'm finished now.
No,
it's all good.
It's letting you go. No, yeah, that's the difference in mentality. Like, I'm definitely the opposite. I feel like, if I'm playing the game, like, I don't want someone to get, especially if it's competitive in some aspect, like, I don't want someone else to get an unfair advantage just because they scan the credit card, you know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah, that's a really big point, yeah.
Yeah, like, it just really does suck, but it's just like at the same time, it's just like, oh, if I see something cool for a character I like, I mean, I personally wouldn't be willing to spend money because I'm super frugal and I don't spend money on free games just because I'm that secure with my money.
Please go videos of my scoping.
Yeah, I'm just that type of person to just never spend money. But I will say, yeah, I would be more willing to if it was just kind of like, it was a non kind of gameplay thing. Yeah, it's just my mentality.
I think it's understandable, especially in a game that has PvP. Because so much progress. Because I guess like paying in Elsword specifically, like the vast majority of the things that you pay for can be obtained by regular grinding,
and I think which is a good part of Elsword is something that we haven't mentioned yet, is that the in-game currency is actually quite powerful, and it is accessible to everybody.
Yeah, there are a couple things you can't buy, like ERP or Bankshare. Yep, Bankshare. Oh my god! But at the same time, like you can still get by without cashing, and you just.
I have.
You just have to put in a buttload of time.
Yeah,
Some people don't think that time's worth it, but at the same time, like that option exists to put in a buttload of time. But there's also the paying population is able to go. I guess like the thing is that like you're incentivized to cash because the average paying player is like so much more ahead than the average free-to-play player. And like personally, I think like considering that the majority of the player base is around Aeronode, maybe early Varnamir, I still think that like people like Meteor or people like Dark, for example, who have like absolutely decked out gear and are participating in game, is like those people are most likely like extremely like small outliers who just happen to put in their time and effort, and I think put in time efficiently to be able to like reach end game without having to pay.
Mm-hmm. Genevieve, you were saying something?
Unfortunately, I've kind of lost my train of thought.
That's fine.
Well, I was going to say really quickly in terms... I think I remember it now. In terms of the separation of, I suppose, the ability to progress via your credit card compared to being able to earn things, there was a concept I saw that was around in the old days, and a concept I saw posted on the suggestions board, and what I've seen in another game, is that for something like PvP, you have a separate mode where everyone has sort of a template of stats, and that removes the pay-to-win aspect for that mode in particular. And for me, I think it's really important to have that separation between a wallet warrior and, skill-based gameplay for a competitive scene like PvP. For something like PvE, there's not really... I mean, to me, there's not really a competition. You all have the same goal. It's just a matter of doing things quicker and showing off to your friends for bragging rights. So, to me, as obnoxious as it sounds, I mean, if you want to go all in for a plus 12, more power to you. I don't have a problem with that. I do get disappointed when, like you said, you can pay for a buttload of gear and you have a huge advantage in PvP.
Yeah, that does really suck for the competitive aspect.
Yeah, but I think at the same time, like there's the cash, but there's also that the caching is technically a pay for convenience. So then what happens when you have all these people who grinded their butts off to achieve all this like really high amounts of power, and then they go into PvP thinking like, hey, like I want my grind to be worth it. I want to be able to have disadvantage over my opponent because I spent hundreds of hours going through my gear, and then they just get slapped with, oh well, you can't because stat normalization.
Well, that's why I said it was a separate game mode.
Yeah.
It's certainly a challenge. Because you have to incentivize people to spend money or else your game dies. But you can't have that gap be so big because you alienate half your player base. And I think Elsewhere's gotten really a lot better on that.
Oh yeah,
B slots free, extended quick slots free, trans slots free.
I was about to say, with something I was mentioning earlier, ED being so strong is more of a modern thing. Like, back who knows how long, like, amulets cost so much more money than they do now.
Oh, I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, like, you can get a plus 10 for, like, not even a bill sometimes. You could snipe one out. Like...
Yeah, like, remember back in the day when they were, like, 5 billion?
Yeah, minimum.
Yeah.
I remember. Real quick, someone left a comment here talking about this topic. I think you can beat me 1, 2, 3. Games where monetization is only on cosmetic, in my opinion, will always be more successful. Look at games like League of Legends, Valorant, Apex, etc. All these games have cosmetics. Nothing affects gameplay. Nothing gives advantage. When everyone plays on equal ground, players will try hard because it's all about how good you are at the game rather than how much you spent. You'll feel better because you are improving. That's probably why MMOs are dying, because most of them give advantage. I think the most successful MMORPGs like WoW has a subscription model, and the game itself is not pay to win. I think something that is to consider is, first of all, I think I agree, is I enjoy games more that are like paywall is for the cosmetic things, but I don't think the idea is, where did you say this? Where it's just like, it will always be more successful. I think something that directly counteracts that is the gacha. The gacha game directly counteracts that because gacha games earn mad money, and I don't know the difference. I have yet to crack the code of why it's okay for the gacha to like be like, you got a whale to like get good at the game essentially, or like be better than other people, like why that's okay, but like for the MMO like Elsword, that's not okay. Like I haven't figured out yet why people are okay with the gacha doing that but not Elsword.
I think 2 points I want to bring up. The first is how you define successful.
Yeah.
Like, are you defining successful by the amount of players who are satisfied? Are you defining successful by the amount of money the game is making? And actually 3 points. So the second point is MMOs are massively have a multiplayer mode. You play in parties. You play against people in PvP. Whereas gacha games are very largely single player oriented.
Yeah. I think real quick, I think I want to define successful as like how much that they earn and if the player base is strong.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think that's what I mean when I say successful, because I think you can also mentioned gacha games are basically a scam. I wouldn't call them successful. Regardless of what you think, they're making money, and I would call that successful.
Yeah, I think the same thing. And because at least in my opinion, a large player base means nothing if the company is not making money.
Yeah.
Because they can't even, because like yes, they might have people who are successful in the game, but if your game is like literally dying because no one is cashing, because there is no incentive to cash, or at least the players don't think that there is enough incentive to cash, then the point is moot. I remember on the forums like a few years ago when I think someone shared a comic made by a frustrated developer on how people are like, oh my god, why is it so pay to win? Oh, I want to be able to like benefit all this stuff. Why are all the games like this? Why are all the games like paying models like the same? Like why is it all like load up, you get enhancements, blah blah blah? And the developers are like, well, it doesn't matter how good our ideas are. It doesn't matter how unique our ideas are if they don't get the money, if they don't get the income to support it. And I think that speaks volumes into how important it is to emphasize that these gaming companies are in fact businesses and they need money to stay afloat. And that is like I guess it's kind of like the difference between surviving and living well. Like there's no point in buying luxuries when like you can't even survive. So I think that at least that comic spoke volumes to me, and I guess it gave me and I guess it kind of renewed my opinion on games that people consider to be greedy, because these games need to make money.
Mm-hmm.
They're businesses. So I guess that's my 2 cents on it, and I forgot my third point. So
thing is that I also want to caution making one-to-one comparisons
between
a game like
yeah.
League of Legends and a game like Elsewhere. They're completely different genres, completely different player bases. I mean, first lesson of business that I was taught: every company's there to make a profit. That's one thing we need to establish. So if anyone is saying a company's greedy, yeah, of course, they could do a bit better on their pricing models, but inevitably, this game is like reality's not a charity. That's the harsh.
Yeah. In a perfect world, everything is free and you can do everything. You know what I mean? But we don't live in
resources are limited.
Yeah.
But like, it is so hard because it is such a subjective. Not only is it a subjective statement of how successful is something, but it's also just there's so many other aspects you have to consider. It's like, they're not appealing to everyone. They're appealing to their target market. There's a lot of costs involved. Like it's just a whole scope you have to take into consideration that doesn't make this so simple. Mm-hmm. It's like, yeah, you can see, okay, League of Legends grossing X amount of money. Clearly, they're doing better.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, but I don't think Elsewhere is looking to compete with League of Legends.
Right, like that's a thing, and also like Elsewhere, like you could say in the Elsewhere market, Elsewhere's like, let's say whatever place, like let's say for example 20th place in like their category. League is first place in its category. Like things are trying to get to League's level. Like who knows what the 20th place version of like the MOBA is trying to struggle, and like maybe it's closed down and we don't know because we don't hear about it. Like,
I think again to bring up another point that was mentioned, or at least now to emphasize a point that was brought up earlier, the whole difference between Asian and Western fan bases. Like you can see that all of these games that have been listed, all of these have very strong PvP focus.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about competing. Well, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not familiar with all of them, but it's all about competing with other people. It's about
mm-hmm.
directly like killing your opponents first, getting the objective first, your team. But games that we would consider to have heavy pay to win models, so to speak, like Elsword, pretty much every gacha game out there, and I guess like most other MMOs like MapleStory, like the primary goal of the game has never been to directly beat other players. It's always been to beat whatever big bad boss there is out there.
Mm-hmm.
So then I guess like since you're not beating, or at least like for me, if you're not directly like interacting with other, or if you're not directly like beating other people, then that makes the pay to win model more acceptable. Because for example, if they had pay to win for like League, for example, like people
doesn't work.
Yeah, that just wouldn't work.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I get where you're going.
Yeah, and I think like the genre of the game is very important. So
mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, that actually is so true. When it comes to competing versus a player, I think if you're competing versus players, it doesn't make any sense at all to make it kind of pay to win. But if you're competing against like the AI controlled boss or whatever, I think yeah, it is more acceptable. That is a good point.
I want to say really quickly that I think a key reason why Elsword survived as long as it has is because it's a weird niche game, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, its gameplay. Yeah, it's so unique.
I don't know if any other games that have a similar playstyle to Elsword. I think there's like Grand Chase and Dungeon Fighter. I'm not familiar with those two titles.
Yeah, even those are like they're not isometric, but they're not 2D platformer.
Yeah, Elsword is just this weird thing that survived because I assume most of us are here because we at least somewhat like the gameplay.
Oh yeah, like
I would hope.
Oh yeah, like if you legitimately ask me what do I think about the game, I love the game because I love the gameplay. Like there's no other game that has this gameplay. The only thing that comes close, in my opinion, is like it's kind of Smash, but that's a fighting game. It's not a MMO, so it's unique in that aspect too. Like there's literally no game like it. The only thing that comes close is like MapleStory, and I don't like how MapleStory looks, so I'm not gonna play MapleStory. Like Elsword has that unique gameplay, and it has this anime style that I like. I don't like chibi anime style. I like this kind of more like, quote unquote serious kind of anime style. And yeah, even Closers has that same thing that DFO does, where it's not platforming 2D fighter. It's just like flat ground 2D kind of beat 'em up brawl.
I think it's important to note that Closers was made by the original developers of Elsword, so because of that, a fair amount of the gameplay mechanics are quite similar.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, well, at least I gave the game a spin, and that's what I found based on. But that was like years ago, so it might have changed a lot now.
I think because this game is so special is why there's so many passionate people in our little small community that are so outspoken about the growth and health of the game and want to see it succeed. That's what.
That's gonna talk about that a little bit in like an almost completely different direction. Is you can see that in other kind of aspects. Is talking about this website, Twitch. Like, there's really no competitor with Twitch. That's why everybody uses Twitch. And Twitch has its own slew of problems. I don't know if you guys know about it, but do you guys know what kind of the? Well, do you guys know what the hot tub streamers are?
Nope. Well, at least I wouldn't be familiar with the term.
Okay, how about you, Jeneviv? Do you know? No. Okay.
No.
So that's quote unquote. Let's call it the meta of Twitch right now, is these people who do, it's mostly girls, who do hot tub streams where they're just in a hot tub, and obviously girls in a hot tub are very attractive. That's why a lot of people watch those streams, and they're just earning tons of money, earning tons of viewers, earning tons of subscribers, etc., etc. And it's just like, people are real pissed off at Twitch because it's just like, why are you guys doing this? This is obviously a problem with the site, but it's just like, man, there's no other live streaming service. You gotta use it, you know? Like, it's a very small comparison, but it's just like, when you have something that doesn't have a competitor, like, that one something can sometimes fly by the wayside because it doesn't have a competitor.
No, I get what you mean. There's no at least to our knowledge, there's no replacement for Els. It's all we have for this style of game.
Like, things come close. MapleStory comes close, it's 2D platformer, but the graphics aren't quite the anime style that Elsword has. Closes comes close, it has that anime style, but it doesn't have that 2D platformer kind of thing. Like, nothing is quite what Elsword is, which I agree is the reason why it stayed afloat for this long, because it hits that niche so perfectly that almost no other company has decided to do for whatever reason.
Because, there's big money in MMOs and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, other companies do it, and it might be like, oh, it's just an Elsword knockoff.
Yeah, like, yeah. Has that ever happened aside from, like, Fist of Fu, which was just an obvious ripoff?
I don't actually... I mean, I can think of examples.
You never heard of Fist of Fu? It's like, it was like a Chinese knockoff. It was really bad.
Oh, dear.
They made male Aisha. It was funny. he was, like, fat.
No, I don't need that mental image.
You've never seen Fist of Fu? Yeah, no, it was just like...
No!
It was like... Yeah, oh yeah, Fist of Fu was like... That's when Elsword was like in its peak. Like, I want to say like Eve just kind of came out into the or Raven just came out into the game. No, it was definitely Eve. I think Eve just came out to the game. They were almost getting to Chung. There was a lot of ripoffs, and one of the ones I remember was Fist of Fu, where it's just like, oh, these characters are just knockoff of Elsword characters. And one of the funniest things to me was like, there was a male mage who had the same animations as Aisha, like all the fireball and staff hits, but it was like a fat Asian dude. Like,
Yeah, I can see that now.
if you look it up on
Oh,
YouTube and stuff,
no.
it's there's still clips and stuff of it.
It died, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, of course. No one played it. Yeah. Yeah. What was the topic? Yeah, distracted by Fist of Fu.
What was the topic?
I think Elsword is so
so
unique, so it's like that's why it's lived for so long. Yeah, I think. Yeah, it's lived. Yeah, it's definitely lived for so long based on that kind of uniqueness. And I definitely think if another company tries to compete with Elsword, they would honestly have a pretty good shot. Because I think a lot of the things Elsword has not modernized, and like its paying model is one of those.
Back from, again, years and years and years of spaghetti. I mean, you got new people coming in, look at this old code, like, the hell am I looking at?
Yeah.
Yeah, apparently there are more, like, I think the code is called Lua. Apparently there are more Lua developers than there are demand for Lua developers. So, yeah, it really is a lot of spaghetti.
It's so old, yeah. It's 2009 code. Like,
I've heard from a unverified and unreliable source that, for example, all the homing skills, so like Spectral Spear.
yeah.
Wow, why am I forgetting all the homing skills all of a sudden?
God Arrow.
God Arrow. From what I heard, they're all coded differently. Every single one of them.
Really?
They all have their own version of code. That's why like Flickshot is so weird.
That's so weird. That's so weird, but
Again,
I kind of can get it.
Not verified at all. Again,
Please take
are probably doing stuff that's not allowed by the terms of service, so I apologize.
It's okay.
Yeah.
This isn't the ELS version.
Yeah, let's say. Sorry about it.
What is it? I think one thing that gets tossed around, here and there is like the idea of like Elsword 2, and I think if they ever did an Elsword 2, I'd want it gameplay wise to be almost exactly the same. And like obviously some other things are enhanced. Obviously 64-bit was one thing.
Unlike MS2.
I don't know if you ever
Honestly,
considered that, Jeneviv.
If they just made it the same game, but just better tech, a better fresh start in terms of just to get rid of technological hindrances, like how Dota 1 went to Dota 2. I think it'd be really great. But if they go the like MapleStory 2 route, new game entirely,
Yeah,
I'm not too confident on that.
Yeah, don't do that. That's so much work.
And I probably keep playing normal Ls too. I mean, I burned freaking like a year of my life grinding for all these amethysts. I'm not going anywhere.
True.
Yeah. God.
Okay.
Oh wow, we went at full energy for an hour and 40 minutes.
I was about to say, yeah, we never got to like a couple of the other questions I was gonna ask you. Also, did you have any questions for us? I don't know if you brought anything to the table.
I did. I don't really have anything in particular that I want to ask. I did have a list of stuff in case we ran out of topics, but since I don't think we've run out, I think we're good until then.
Here, why don't you bring one up so it doesn't seem like we're just talking at you.
Sure thing. Give me just a moment. So, just out of curiosity, because I don't really follow everyone in the community, what would you say is something you like the most about Elsword? What keeps you around? And we kind of addressed this with the aesthetic, but if you could like define it in this like a few sentences, like what has kept you around all these years?
If I may go first, it's the gameplay for me. The literal function of moving around, the combos, the skills, it all feels great to play. And I think especially recently, the PvE content, the bosses especially, like the Rosso and Birth and Master Road bosses, they're all great to fight. It's all very enjoyable to play. That's what keeps me around, is just kind of like the gameplay, and especially the more recent PvE contents.
How about you, Sky?
This is a very difficult question for me to answer, because I can think of a couple of points, but I wouldn't otherwise be able to exactly pinpoint what has made me stay around for long. Like, it's kind of like I have I have this like feeling. It's kind of like I have this feeling of attachment, but at the same time, I don't exactly know how to describe it. So.
It's become your life. It's second nature.
So I guess one of the really big things I remember is I guess like socially, like the people that I've met. In terms of like online spaces, like also forums, like the old forums back when it was a thing, was probably the very first online space that I participated in. Facebook doesn't count because I only added people like when I knew them in real life already. But I think like having that as my first online platform, as opposed to, I don't know, Twitter, was I guess it's really important to me, and it has a special place in my heart. So I guess you can kind of see where I've gone with that in terms of that I'm a moderator in the official forums. I modded the old forum. I modded the new forums back when it was a thing as well. And I guess I've just made many connections and friends over the years that I guess I value that time with people that I've made. Even if I no longer talk to these people, it's still something that I think I value a lot more than I think I do. And also there's the gameplay as well. I think even though I don't really have any consciously, oh, I love the game thoughts, it has to be something that has kept me around. I just like it has to be, right? Otherwise I would have just gone, oh, the days are so boring. Why am I still here? What's stopping me from being like just a casual player instead of like the avid whale and grinder I am now? So gameplay definitely. In the earlier stage, back before the characters also helped keep me in, but I think now, especially from the way that, I mean, I know that Elsword handles its lore a lot better now, but I think as I've branched out to other games and explored what they've done with their lore, I found that the Elsword lore felt lacking. Although it did keep me around for the first few years, that's no longer something that I'm so interested in now. But it was, I think, still something that kept me around for some time. Yes. That is my answer.
Thank you all for opening to me about that. This is very interesting.
Yeah, like something else real quick is that like even now to this day, I'm just excited to fight my next birth raid. Like I did one just this last Thursday, I think, and I didn't do too well, and I'm actually excited to do it again and do better. Like I have legitimate excitement towards that.
No, I can understand that 110%. Or as someone who only cleared up once.
Yeah.
Had to get babysat by Shimo the whole time, but
I mean, I still am. I'm babysat by like Kyochi and Sanai.
It's okay. It's part of the experience of learning.
Yeah.
Hopefully you get lucky. Like we had 1 week where 3 people got boss under 3 total 56 clears.
Yeah, apparently I'm at the region where I should be getting it. It's like the dash between the weapon and something else. I'm at that point right now.
Oh, that's really good then.
Prestige of Soul.
Yeah.
Something weapon.
I think Elsword actually does a really good job at it, like encouraging you with new stuff to like go for it. I think it really does a good job with that. For better or for worse, obviously, but yeah.
So yeah, Jeneviv, what's your answer to this question?
Yeah, I did have another question, which was for you, Jeneviv. Yeah, how is it being a mod? Any special highlights, challenges?
So let's try and break this down first for a little bit, because it is a little bit, to me, a bit broad. How would you like to approach this, like from a daily approach, from like my general attitude on things, like workload? I feel like
however you want to approach it. I left it broad, so you can kind of answer it however you want to answer it.
Fair enough. So obviously on the surface of mod work, it's advertised as a position of passion, and that's genuinely how it is. Your compensation is doing a service for the community. Yeah. And for me, that's what got me motivated to start with it, and that's what's kept me motivated throughout it. It's kind of similar, actually. That's fun. It's had its ups and downs. It is a surprising amount of work.
Okay.
I'm not sure what I can reveal. So obviously, there's the moderation side. We have to enforce the rules. It's unfortunate reality. You know, no one likes being told you can't do something.
Of course.
And I've had so many people take it out on me, which is understandable. But keep in mind, guys, I don't make the rules. But I am required to enforce them. So if you're yelling at me, that's just like bashing the waiter for the food being bad, right? Ain't my fault. And then of course we handle events and yada yada. But I think it's been a really good experience overall for me. I've learned to be a bit more reserved in terms of handling situations. Personally, I believe myself to be pretty emotional, and so when you're in a situation where you're actually held accountable for your actions, it teaches you to take a step back and really think about what you're doing. Every move you do has to have some semblance of, reasonability or meaning. I can't just go off to someone who I may not agree with on the server and be like, "Hey, you're an idiot. Get muted. See ya." Right? You can't do that.
Yeah.
You can't tell someone, I hate you. And I think that's a really good life lesson to learn. It's just that level of restraint. And that's something I really valued from this experience. Outside of that, there's the, learning to work with others, learning to organize things. I think those are all very communication. I think those are all very valuable life skills. But like I said, it has its ups and downs. I think I've been a mod for, I want to say 10 months now.
Oh, okay. Coming up on the anniversary here.
Yeah, so I'm actually pretty new to this. This guy's basically mod forever. She's like a dinosaur.
Yeah. Hey. We've talked about that. Funny.
I didn't really know what I was getting into, and I think my first week of mod, I also got hit by a DDoS attack.
Oh, I remember that, yeah.
And I lost 3 days of my life just handling the sheer amount of spam we had.
Oh,
it was insane.
I don't want to think. Like, I think I can't remember what I said to you then, but I think I might have been like, "Hey, I'm so sorry you had to do this. This is like interning at a customer service place, and then like everything goes to hell on your first week, and when you have no idea what the hell to do, your superiors are running around trying to control the chaos. You have your own load, but you can't really ask them because they're busy too, and then it's just."
Your first week at retail is Black Friday or something.
Yeah.
I honestly want to say that this position is like retail, and I mean that because this is the harsh reality of being mod. Although this is a volunteer position, the community does hold us to a pretty high standard in a lot of senses.
Yeah.
So there are days where this is like the lowest moments where it genuinely feels like everything you do is not good enough, and you're always just scrutinized for every little thing you do, and that sucks. But what makes it worthwhile is the people in the community that put a smile on my face, right? There's so many fun people around, and that's why I stuck around. Is just at the time we only had Clove and Skyrest, and not to knock on them, but we lost Onos, and so we had 2 very busy mods for our community is relatively small. It's still a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
So there's a genuine need for it, and I just felt that, although at the time I was only in the community for like 3 months, like I was really new. I was like, I got to know some people. I like these people. Let's give it a shot. What's the worst that can happen is that they either tell me no or it doesn't go very well. Right? I just went for it, and it's again, like I said, it has its ups and downs. I've had days where just like, good God, can you people just be reasonable and just give me a break? And then there's days where I love you guys. It's really fun. Even not just some dude behind a Discord screen just interacting with people. I mean, it's really cool to just, I guess, be a part of this small community and be able to at least make some level of a tangible difference to an extent, if that makes sense.
No, I 100% get you. It's like a little bit crazy actually hearing you say all these things and how much I kind of relate to that as like a content creator. Like, same thing with my origin. Like, main thing that I wanted to join ELS for is so that I had a way to give things away to the people who wanted to watch me, because before I became ELS, I did one giveaway, and what I did is I just grinded my butt off for like a week grinding fragment powders. This is back when like LTRs were meta, and that's what I gave away. That's what I had to do, because I was just like, bro, I don't pay in this game. What do I give people? So it's just like, oh, okay, this is something I can give away. But like, being ELS, I can obviously give KC away to people who watch me. So that's really cool. And I definitely resonate with the idea of just like, You know, some days you have those great days. Sometimes you have those days where a stream is popping off and it's really good. You upload a video and it's like really good. Then you got those other days where it's just like you upload a video and people don't really like it. You're streaming, not many people are watching you, and not many people are talking in chat, and it really does suck. But it's just like, you know, these ups and downs are part of it. I agree that like the community is such a great thing that like that's why I want to keep it going, and the game too.
I think another thing that, at least for me, is a highlight. Like, no matter what job you do, is when people like go out of their way to tell you that they appreciate you.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me at least, that's one of the biggest sources of validation I've ever gotten throughout anything I've done.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, appreciation goes a long way. I mean, for you guys, it might just be a couple of words on a screen that you just randomly send off. Maybe you spend a minute to type them, but I think especially if people are working on the job and they have either low self-esteem, imposter syndrome, blah blah, like all that kind of thing, like those few words like can mean so much to them. You never know if they'll even like hold on to those words for like weeks or months or years going through that job. Like sometimes like the message that you think is really insignificant could really push someone forward.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, positivity goes a very long way. Please don't
I really appreciate any level of positivity, because you know the unfortunate reality is, or the good part about reality is, I like to believe that there's a lot of good in the world, right? There's a lot of good people. Not all of them are very active, but for the most part, I feel most people are reasonable, and it's really lovely to interact with those people. There's a saying, I don't know the exact quote, but I feel it's like it takes 1,000 positive comments to supersede one single negative comment.
Oh yeah, it's so true.
There are times where like that negativity really gets to you, but you know it's just I don't know how to describe it. It's just something really cool about just being part of a small scene. That even though this is our little corner of the world, that it's still a fun part to be a part of it for the most part. If it wasn't, I wouldn't be here. I'll just make that clear.
Oh yeah. Like for as much like, what is it? For as many problems as the game has, for as many like toxic people that there are in the community, Elsword actually has, at least in my experience, a lot of very nice and very helpful people. Like when newbies get into the game, I see a lot of people just helping, just straight up helping. Like I do think it's a legitimate issue that the game doesn't explain a lot, but I think the community does a really good job at explaining things to people and helping people out.
Yeah, I mean, it's because the game doesn't offer too much. Is why the community
like
steps in.
For better or for worse, almost, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just it's a really neat thing. It's the best way I can describe it. I wish I had more eloquent words for that.
It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah. It's just wild to just think back. It's like I had tried the game completely arbitrarily after quitting it for so long. Ended up liking it. Just ended up hanging out in the community, and now I'm mod. It's like, the hell happened? It's like, it's a volunteer position, but it's a good part of my life.
I think I remember. I think back when you were like either an application or things like that. I remember reading through a couple of them. I think I remember yours or something about that. Like your name is familiar to me, at least from longer than you've been a mod, if that makes sense.
It's been a very strange journey, but like I said, some of the things I've learned, even though this is just video game form to an extent, I've learned some pretty nice life skills that I've applied to my daily routine. Because currently, just as a quick tangent, I'm studying business. And a lot about business is interacting with other people. So being able to eloquently form thoughts, or at least practice, making these quote professional some level statements. I screw up a lot, but that's besides the point. But having that extra avenue of practice, I really value.
Oh yeah.
And also just dealing with people. I mean, that's just a part of life, right? You gotta deal with the good and the bad.
Yeah. I mean, that's why we're doing the job. Like, because people are not reasonable.
Yeah, like, there's no book, or there's nothing that will tell you how to deal with different types of people. That's just something you learn from doing it. You just gotta learn that. Alright. Did you have something else first, Jeneviv? We don't have many minutes, but maybe this last topic you want to bring up, Jeneviv, will be our last one.
Oh, okay. Let's see. So I've heard from you guys as to what has kept you playing Elsword, but if you can recall, what got you into Elsword to begin with? Like, how did you discover it?
Okay.
Like, what was your journey that led you to where you are now?
That's a good way to say it, like the journey. Were you gonna go first, Kai? I went first last time, so.
Oh no, I don't mind. Do you wanna go?
No, go ahead. I went first last time.
Okay. How I found the game was my cousin actually. So important to note that said cousin has also been like one of the longest friends I've known for my life. Technically we're family friends too, but it's more like her mom and my mom grew up together, and they both immigrated here. And so yeah, she's a very good friend. Anyway, she's like, hey, like to my sister and she's like, hey, well, I found this game. It's called Elsword. Let's give it a try. And we were like, okay, well, and then all three of us hopped on. We all played Elsword, and yeah, here I am today.
Mm-hmm.
So my sister has long quit. She doesn't favor, mostly because she doesn't favor the grind. But that's because she's actually a good student. She studies. Please don't be me and waste the time doing this kind of thing. But yeah, so my cousin's also long quit. Well, she quit before my sister and I quit, and I guess I've just stuck around because of my interactions with the community and gameplay and whatnot. Yeah, that's my story.
Cool. Yeah, for me, like, it's funny you mentioned Journey, because I guess actually kind of out of Journey in a way. I remember like years and years ago, like back in the day. I don't know if you guys remember this. I remember playing Adventure Quest. And
Adventure Quest!
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was shit.
Yeah, that was the jam, dude. I remember that was the jam back in the day. Playing that, and I eventually just kind of like stopped for whatever reason. I don't know if I beat the game or whatever. But I stopped playing that game, and then like my cousin was into RuneScape a lot, and I got into that because of her. So I played a lot of RuneScape, but I eventually got over that too. And then I guess it was just kind of like I just was going through these online games, and I remember seeing Elsword on Newgrounds, newgrounds.com. You guys know that website? Yeah. There was an ad for Elsword on Newgrounds, and it was like, play your manga. And I was just like, and that was the perfect moment for me, because that's when I was like really into anime, and I first got into anime, started watching that Bleach, started watching that Fairy Tail, like all that good stuff. Like, I was super into anime at that point, so I was just like, this is perfect, like an online game, like anime styled, and then like that's how I found it. And then just like, ever since then, like, what is it, the characters got me hooked, the gameplay got me hooked, like meeting people and all that stuff, like, yeah, it just, ever since, I just never fell out of it. Like, I remember falling out of Adventure Quest, I remember falling out of RuneScape, I just never fell out of Elsword. I just kind of kept that going.
Yeah, for if you don't mind me sharing.
Go for it.
I also went through a similar journey in that I grew up playing MMOs. Ever since I was very young, my first like big game I got invested into was World of Warcraft, and that was a big part of my life.
Yeah, WoW's a big thing.
Yeah, I played that game for 8 to 10 years. I met a lot of people, I learned a lot of things, I suffered a lot of things, and I played WoW, I played Adventure Quest, I played RuneScape, played MapleStory, I played all sorts of MMOs. I was just this big person on MMOs for some reason. But way back when my mates and I were in grade school, it was the height of like Sword Art Online. I think it was the most popular anime at the time. And one of our friends was like, I know this like 2.5D anime beat 'em up game. I think you guys will like it. The four of us got on there and we tried it, and we were hooked. So we played it hardcore for like, I want to say from 2.11 to around late 2.13, so like just about to 2.14. Before we really just started losing traction. And when it comes to games like this, it was always just the four of us, and one by one we just started quitting. At that point, it's like, well, ship sunk, time to move on, right? Came back in November 2019. I was like, damn, this game's still around. Oh, this game would be dead.
Yeah.
I just arbitrarily gave it a try. Like I said at the start of this, it's just like, well, it's been so many years. Let's see how it goes.
Okay.
Dude, like, it's like being a caveman. You like thawing out a caveman. You go from like old Elsword you used to all that to what Elsword is now. It's not even the same game in my opinion.
Oh yeah, no, it's definitely not. I think for the better, at least in my personal opinion.
Yes,
I think
I agree too.
I think a lot of good things has changed.
Yeah.
Of course, we'll always miss those old days when we were young. We didn't know any better. There's less standards, and we were just all goofing around sparring or something. But
Oh yeah, I remember those days. The sparring room.
if I didn't enjoy the game, I wouldn't be playing it because there's so many MMOs out there, right? You
Oh
got
yeah.
Final Fantasy. Well, I mean, I also got non-MMOs like League. It's just for me, I feel this is worth my time, so I'll keep playing. As soon as it's not, probably gonna be out the door.
Mhm.
Till then, gonna try to make the best use of my time as I can.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. Like, that is such a true point. Is like kind of like almost the theme of this podcast. So just kind of like talking about like how Elsword's doing, where Elsword's kind of going, what directions they should take. Like, for better or for worse, this game is resilient. Like, it's still going. Like, I think about like comparing an online game to a non-online game. Like, one of the games I think about is like Cyberpunk 2099, where it's just like, man, people hyped up that game for 10 years. Game came out, a week later, no one's talking about it. And like Elsword's out here, like for better or for worse, it's still rocking. it's still rocking out. Yeah, people still talking about it, still playing it. I think it's an impressive testament, at least.
It's always just so funny because one of the most common questions asked in our Discords is this game dead?
Oh,
well, it has a Discord server, man. I mean,
dude,
you extrapolate from there.
Once a week that pops up in my comments. Like I stopped responding to them because it's just like, alright. I think I like half of me thinks that they're just trying to be funny game dead kind of thing, and it's just like I'm sure other people are just like they're serious, so that's why I just kind of stopped responding to them. I remember responding to them back in the day being like, yeah, that's why we're making a video about it, and it's just like, yeah, like all the channels are like normal, and on the weekends like at least half of them can get busy if there's a double EXP event or something like that. Like the game population wise is doing quite well, and even on KR like charts, like it's still in top 50 of like played games.
Yeah, people look at the player bases like, oh, we don't have all the public metrics, but they're like, oh, Els only has like 1,000 players, but like, oh, this game's dead.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yeah, sure, we're not as big as League, we're not as big as Dota, yada yada, but we got, like I said, we have our own little core in the world.
Mm-hmm.
It still keeps chugging.
Yeah, like
I think it's improving, in my opinion.
Yeah, like
I really genuinely think it is.
Like regardless of what you think, you got to at least give the game credit for just in the NA server, 10 years going. Like that's really impressive. That's really, really impressive.
Yeah, I think especially because NA, or at least like Western servers, don't usually make as much money as the Eastern servers. I think I remember seeing a statistic for how much money Fate Go earns, like by region.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think, what was it? So the Japanese server gave them like, what was it, like 90 or 95% of the income?
Mm-hmm.
Or was it 80? I can't remember. But no, I think it was like 85. Like some really high amount came from their mother server, which is the Japanese server.
Mm-hmm.
Then the Chinese server gives them like 10%. The NA server gives them 5%, gives them like 3% or 5% of their total income.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. and I guess another thing to keep in mind is that this is a gacha game.
Mm.
So like gacha games are like the incentive to spend is like mostly very large.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the fact that the NA server is still kicking, even though we probably like give them a tiny fraction of the money that they make, I think the fact that it is still earning enough to stay afloat is something.
Yeah, it's a very at least impressive, I would say. But yeah, all right, that is that, as they say. Yeah, once again, shout out to Jeneviv. Thank you so much for tagging along. This was very enjoyable to talk with you.
Thank you very much for the invitation. It's been a lovely experience.
Of course, of course. Yeah, feel free to ask to come on again. I'm sure we would love to have you again. Yeah, really cool talking with you. Yeah, guys, this has been 2.5 Crows. The good old fashioned version. Next week it will be another ELS version. It will pretty much be dedicated to Anniversary. We're probably going to try to do some type of walk down memory lane or something like that. But that's kind of going to be the focus. So if you guys want to put any questions in podcast channel, if you want to make it like more nostalgic questions, like what has been your favorite insert thing here throughout the favorite event, or like favorite boss, or like feature that's gone away, like, you know, feel free to put that. But yeah, that's it for us. Thank you guys so much for watching. Any last things, Sky, Genevieve, you want to say?
Okay, I guess I'll go first. I guess for everyone who's listening, thank you as usual. Thank you for coming, and I guess please look forward to our next episode. And I guess thank you, Jeneviv, for coming and taking time off your day to come and talk with us.
Been an absolutely enjoyable experience, like I said earlier, and I want to wish you two both luck, and including Mommy Crow, who couldn't be here for the next podcast.
Hmm?
I also want to wish everyone a happy Elsword anniversary. I hope you guys can grind well and stay online. It's going to be quite the poppin' day, so
yeah,
make sure you can try your best to make it, and hope it goes smoothly. Hope you enjoy all the benefits that happens.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
What's up?
When you're grinding, please take breaks.
Oh yeah,
Don't
please.
skip your meal. Stay
Drink
hydrated.
water.
Still skip your music, even if Elsword gives so
Sleep.
much fun. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
all right. Genevieve, do you know how we end these podcasts?
No.
All right, you're about to find out.
Right, we go.
All right.
Okay.
All right, everybody. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you guys next week, and bye.
Bye.